Hello, and welcome to the Being Human podcast, where we explore what it means to truly be human, physically, mentally, and spiritually. We upload an episode of this podcast every single week to help you improve yourself, to help you improve your health, your mindset, manage your relationships better, achieve your goals, everything to help you experience this existence better. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss any of these episodes. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Cullum, otherwise known as the Push-Up Guy. I discovered Kevin on Instagram just a few weeks ago. Kevin is on a mission to complete 1 million push-ups. This is a mission he has been on since 2015, and now the end is in sight. He is aiming to complete his 1 millionth push-up by the end of this year on December 29th. He's currently at about 850,000. Kevin is, number one, making push-ups great again. Push-ups have fallen out of favour, I think, recently, and I talked to Kevin about why he thinks that is. There's something about the simplicity of his content on Instagram, just him doing press-ups wherever he finds himself, that I think is really inspiring and a great reminder to people that you don't need a gym, you don't need loads of steroids in order to build a great physique. It may not be easy to do it every day, but it's simple, and it's just a matter of being consistent with that simplicity. There was a whole load of actionable advice shared for people that maybe are looking to get into better shape and that just don't know how, from a physical standpoint, but more importantly from a mental standpoint, how to get out of that mental rut, how to really kickstart yourself into some kind of physical fitness regime. Great advice, lots of inspiration, lots of positivity. We discussed characters like Jocko Willink, David Goggins, Courtney Dalwater, talked a bit about ultramarathons, the whole 9 yards. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I hope you find lots of inspiration and value in it. If you do, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. That's the best way you can help support Being Human, help support its growth, help be a part of the community. So please hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share the video as well. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting Being Human. So your name on Instagram is kevincullum, the Push-Up Guy. Explain to us what that means and what your presence on Instagram, on social media is all about, what it's all for.
Sure. Yeah, so in 2015, I started recording the number of push-ups that I did. And the reason I started doing that was because I had met a guy at a work conference, and I heard him describe that he had been doing that. He had been recording the workouts that he did, the push-ups, the sit-ups, and he described how it was cool, how over time he could see the trends and, times that he did a lot or didn't. And I thought to myself, at the time I was, how old would I have been? I think about 25. Yeah, I was 25 then. And I thought, God, I should do that too. I had never been big into fitness, really. I had done push-ups in the past, which is why it resonated. I always saw my dad growing up do push-ups. But I was always intimidated to go to the gym. So I thought to myself, God, what a good idea. I can do push-ups by myself at home. And nobody can necessarily see me do it, but I can track it and it'd be a cool thing. So that was in 2015. I started recording just my workouts just by myself in a spreadsheet on my own. And then after a couple of years, late 2017, I created an Instagram account with the thought being, at the time, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to try to do 1 million push-ups, which is my big goal now. But I also wanted to try to, at the time, break the world record for the most push-ups done in 1 hour, which at the time was like 2,800, 2,800. And I've always been sort of a startup type of guy, an entrepreneurial type of guy. I've always wanted to build and create things. And back then, that's when I had first started learning about guys like Gary Vaynerchuk. And he in particular talked about how nowadays with technology where it is and social media where it is, anybody could create a business or could create a movement off anything. And he described it as, if you love Smurfs, like the little blue characters, you can find enough people around the world through social media to connect with, to create something valuable to at least that community. And I remember thinking, God, that's so interesting. I wonder if I could try to inspire people by breaking this world record in push-ups, but then also, more importantly, doing 1 million push-ups, because I knew at the time it would take me, 7 to 10 years back then. That's what I thought, to reach that goal. So that's where I'm at. That was a long answer to your question, but 2017, I started this Instagram account with the hopes of inspiring people by documenting my process of trying to break this world record, which I eventually scrapped because it was hurting my body. And then more importantly, trying to do 1 million push-ups.
That's brilliant. So did you go for an attempt on the world record, or were you preparing for it and realized that this was going to just do too much damage to your body?
Yeah, I never did an official attempt. I never got close to being ready to. The most push-ups I did in 1 hour was 2,000, like just over 2,000. I did that one time.
I mean, that's an incredible number still.
Yeah, I remember being incredibly pumped about it. And even when I hear that now, there's no way I could come close to doing that. Probably not even. Right now I can probably do 1,000 in an hour. Or I know I can, but it's unpleasant. I would choose not to. I never do it because it just sucks. So I was training for it. I remember I used to get up real early before work and just go to my family room, in my wife and my apartment at the time. And I would just set my timer for an hour and just go. And I would do it over and over. I would do that like once a week, probably trained for 2 or 3 months. And then my elbow, one of my elbows in particular, my left elbow, was just giving me too much of an issue. So I decided, I'm going to hurt myself. This is going to be stupid. And then I actually thought the goal of going toward 1 million push-ups, I think might actually have more, it might resonate with more people, because anybody could realistically do that. It's just a matter of continuing to put in the effort over a long period of time. I mean, anybody can do a push-up. So realistically, anybody could do 1 million, because it's just doing one push-up 1 million times. So I thought maybe that'll resonate more and inspire people more, because I'm a normal dude. The vast majority of the world is a group of normal people. So that's where I landed on that. That's why the million really sat with me.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really good point there, that when you're going for something like a world record that's very time restricted and very intense, like the most amount of push-ups in an hour, that's not going to be achievable for everybody, because you're kind of trying to hit peak athletic performance in a very short window there. But when you don't put a time limit on something and you just say, I'm going to climb this hill, I'm going to conquer this mountain, and it doesn't matter what time I do it in, so long as I complete it, then I've achieved that goal. That is accessible to everyone. And I think it's healthier. It's a healthier goal as well, right? Because as you said, you were breaking your body down trying to get this world record attempt of doing the most amount of push-ups in an hour. Whereas conversely, if you're doing 1 million push-ups over time, no time limit, then it's just going to become it's going to be a little and often effect, right? I mean, let's go into that. How many push-ups do you do each day? I imagine you're not killing yourself trying to do as many as possible each day. You're doing some more some days and then less others, depending on how your body feels. And I imagine that creates a healthy workout regime week to week, right?
I think so. A lot of people will ask me, I'll answer your question there directly in a sec, but a lot of people will ask me for workout tips or routines or sort of fitness tips. And the truth of it is, I don't really have good answers for those questions. I would not consider myself even really a fitness guy. I would consider myself more of a mindset guy, because this whole thing is about trying to instill the perspective that anyone can do anything in life as long as you work at it for a long enough period of time. That is the whole thing behind this. So you touched on it a moment ago, that like that is relatable. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you like me or don't like me. It's relatable to everybody's life. If we want to accomplish whatever thing that we are passionate about in life, realistically, if it's meaningful enough, it's not going to come easy. It's not going to come quick. It's only going to happen through continuous effort for probably years and years and years. So that's really the big thing I'm trying to prove. And then as it relates to push-ups, so to date, since 2015, I've done a little bit more, over 856,000. So people regularly will comment on my Instagram account. They'll comment on how many push-ups that is every single day since then. And on average, I don't know the exact number, it comes out to like 250 push-ups every day since January 1st of 2015. That's the average. Now, when it comes to my day-to-day, on average over the last probably 3 years, I average about 400 or 500 a day when I'm doing push-ups. But I don't do them every day. Some days I'll do 1,000 or 800 or 700 or 600, and then some days I'll do none. To your point, I will take days off when it doesn't feel good or I don't feel good or something hurts. I mean, I have 2 little kids. I'm married. I've got I've got things to do just like everybody else. So some days I just can't find the time, and that's okay. I try to point that out. I probably don't do as good enough a job as I could. I try to point that out though to people, that this is not an everyday, psychotic attempt. Now, some people might think I'm a little psycho or obsessed, which I definitely am obsessed with making this happen, but it seriously is something that everybody could do. Now, one final thing I'll say on that is, if you look back at the first few years of doing this, so in 2015 alone, I did 15,000 push-ups the whole year. In 2016, I did like 29,000. In 2017, I think that jumped to, if I'm remembering correctly, like 60,000 or something. So the numbers used to be way less, and it ramped up, and that's how everything works in life. So I try to make that as clear as I can as well, that like this was not just a one day, it started, clicked in my head, let me get off to the races. This thing has built and progressed over time.
Yes, it seems to me that you're very structured. As you said, you started a spreadsheet when you very first started working out. Was that something? Is that just kind of your personality? There's a quote that I really like. I can't remember who to properly attribute it to, but there's a quote that says, "That which is measured is improved," and I think that's really important. And I think that's something which a lot of people do fall down on when they come to working out. I think you can make a lot of progress when you first start working out. Just by following your body's intuition. And that is still important to maintain as you progress through fitness. But there comes a point where the progressions are going to become more and more incremental, more and more subtle. And at that point, that's when it becomes a numbers game, right? That's when you've got to start measuring things, and that which is measured is improved. So tell me where that came from, the idea to start tracking it on a spreadsheet from the very inception of it, because that's not something I would inherently think of doing at the start, but maybe look back and think, oh, I should have started that.
Yeah. So there's a couple things there. One, I initially was introduced to the idea of tracking this stuff by a guy I met probably in 2014, who I had heard he had been doing that. And so I thought, shit, I could do that. Why not do that? At the very least, and this is what I thought at the time, it would be cool 20 years from now, 30 years from now to look back. I didn't have kids back then, but I remember thinking it'd be cool to show my kids someday, this is the stuff that I was doing. And this is how I, made progress or whatever. At the same time, I didn't really know what it would become. I just thought, hey, this is kind of cool. So I certainly cannot take the credit for having the idea and the thought to, I should document all of this. It was introduced to me and I was kind of inspired to do it from there. But for anybody listening, I now am a firm believer. In fact, it's something I talk about a lot. I'm a firm believer in documenting anything and everything that any of us are trying to improve at. Because the more that things are documented, to your point, there's another quote about like documenting, and I'm forgetting the quote now also, but it's like what gets, I think the quote is, what gets measured gets managed. And it's so true. The more that we measure things or document things or write things down, however you want to phrase that, the more aware we are of it. And on top of that, what I don't think is talked about enough that I love to talk about is it creates positive momentum. We all experience momentum all the time in our lives, whether it's positive or negative. I imagine everybody can relate with, having a bad day where something goes bad in the morning, then oftentimes something goes bad midday and then later in the day, and suddenly you've just had a bad day. And I think a lot of that is attributable to negative momentum, where something went wrong in the morning and it sets you kind of in a tailspin, and then everything after that would just be bad because the negative momentum that hit in the morning. Positive momentum is also the same thing. So the more that we are aware of and documenting the positive things that are happening, we build up positive momentum. So for me, there's no chance I will ever quit at my goal of doing 1 million push-ups. I've said it before, I'm not challenging life, but like, unless something drastic were to happen, I get wildly injured or I'm killed, that's the only thing that's going to stop me from doing this, because I've built up so much positive momentum toward this push-up goal. And I've learned that is it's a critical piece of accomplishing anything, is building up that positive momentum. So I'm not a massive drinker in my life, but I love having beers, and I have for a while. But about 6 months ago, I thought, you know what, I want to stop this. It's not helping my life. And I know that if I stop drinking, things will improve. So I haven't drank in 6 months. And that's not a rip on anybody who likes to drink alcohol or doesn't. I don't mean it at all that way. What I'm trying to say, though, is that I have tested my own hypothesis, which is document every single thing every single day that you're doing. Use that to build positive momentum, continue documenting it. And then before long, you're like, oh my God, I have made such progress. So I've tested it in a bunch of areas, and it could not be more true. If you document things, to your point, you manage them, you're aware of them, you measure them, they continue to go up and improve.
That's a really brilliant piece of advice, I think. If you want to build positive momentum, like you said, momentum is so important. Otherwise, we just kind of end up having a good day here, a good day there, a bad day here, a bad day there. And a great way to build that positive momentum is by documenting it. I think part of it then almost becomes manifestation. As you document, you've had a good day, you document it, you're almost then manifesting a good day to come tomorrow. You talk, though, about negative momentum. Do you have any advice as to how to stop momentum when it's headed in a negative direction? So you spoke about you wake up, you have a bad morning, that can turn into a bad day at work, that can turn into a bad evening. Do you have any insight as to when you feel like your day is headed downwards as opposed to upwards, what you can do to break that momentum and turn it around?
Sure. This won't necessarily work for everybody. I think I am a very normal person. I wasn't born with any special skills or talents, but one thing that I was definitely born with is, and I think I owe a lot of this to my parents. This will be relatable to your question, is I was born with just like positivity built into me. So I'm a.
Do you think that's an American? Sorry to interrupt. Do you think that's an American thing? I think that's much more American than it is British, and I think it's something that we could take from Americans. Americans just seem to be so much more optimistic from my point of view.
That's interesting. I don't know. I've never thought about it that way. I've never heard what you just said right there. So that's fascinating and interesting myself. I don't know that it's American. I mean, I know, I'm obviously American. I know a lot of, I don't know. I don't like have a lot of friends. I don't mean it this way, but I know a lot of Americans, as anybody does, know people in their lives. And I don't know that everybody is that positive or optimistic. I think if I was born with any gift, I think I was blessed with the gift of being an eternal optimist. And I think I probably got that from my dad in particular, who is also an eternal optimist. And so even for those people that are not, I think a lot of it is a choice. So I do think I was blessed with like the ability to get to that choice quicker maybe than other people, but it all comes down to making a choice. So like bad things happen in my life. I have rough days. I don't feel good some days. I'm hurting, something bad happens in life. But I also know that I can make the choice to look at that differently, as opposed to sitting around and thinking, God, how much does this suck? Life is in a rough place, which yes, it may be. I'm not naive, but I realize that there is always something to be learned from those negative positions. And at the same time, if I or you or anybody is in that low place, there's only up from there. If things are in a real low place, like if you put it into a workout routine, for example, just because it's an easy way to connect the dots. Let's say you haven't run in 4 years. I'm making this up. And you really want to run, and that's weighing on you, but you just can't get yourself moving. The reality is the only way that you're going to get yourself moving is by getting yourself moving, by putting your shoes on and literally going and taking one step and then doing it again. Like that's just how everything in life works, I have learned. So I think you can connect that to being stuck in one of those negative mindsets or a negative place. The only way to get out of it is to get yourself out of it. I mean, that's one final thing I'll say is like, when I was a kid, I used to think things would just work. I'm so blessed with where I grew up in life. I was blessed with a great family and great parents. I just thought things would work out for me. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that, sure, I was blessed with how I've been brought up, but like, that doesn't mean that things are just going to work. The only way to get things to happen in life is to go make them happen. And I think that's relatable to perspective and getting out of negative situations as well.
You mentioned running. I've seen you doing some running on your Instagram page, and I wanted to talk to you about that. Obviously, the main part of your regime has got to be the push-ups, right? Just to get the numbers in. But what other training are you doing alongside that?
Yes, over the years I've done a decent amount of running, and when I say decent amount, I've run on average over the last 5 years. I've probably run 2 or 3 times a week, and that's 4 to 5 miles per run. That's usually what I like because you get a little sweat, you get outside, you feel good about yourself. Now I'm signed up for the beginning of June to do a relay ultra marathon race with 3 other friends of mine. So it's a 100-mile race for the 4 of us. So you break that up. One person has to run 31 miles, and so that's what I'm training for right now. At the same time, I'm always on the lookout for other ways to try to inspire people and prove this point. My whole brand is called Anyone Can Do Anything. And I'm always looking for an opportunity to prove that. Not necessarily like to create the content, even though that's part of the game. I mean, that's part of how I'm trying to get my message out. But I also am just always looking for ways to prove that message and to find different ways to try to resonate with people. So running has been a good way to do that because I don't enjoy the actual act of running. It's a chore. I mean, it's hard to get yourself running. In fact, anytime I run, no matter how many runs I've gone on in my life, the first mile sucks. It always sucks. It always sucks to get yourself going. And I think that's how most good things in life are. It's hard to get going, but once you do, it's the same thing with that positive momentum. You build up enough of that momentum where suddenly you hit a groove and you're like, oh my God, I'm into this now. And so there's something else I've been doing on my Instagram that you may have seen. I'm trying to run a mile as fast as I can. And I don't have any real goal for that other than let's see if I can improve, again, to try to prove that message that anyone can do anything with enough time, energy, and effort. So that's been kind of a fun thing to do. And I say fun in quotes. It's not enjoyable, but I know for a fact that I will get better at it the more that I work at it. So that's what I'm trying to document and show people, just to try to reiterate the point that good things come through work and effort and time.
I definitely concur. Number one, with the purpose of it all. That's a great purpose, and I think it's a purpose I definitely hold myself in life in terms of whatever I do. I just think we should have the mindset with whatever we approach in life. We should have the mindset that we can do anything, and you'll be so surprised at how far you can get with that. Your mindset affects what you're able to do physically so much. If you think you can only run 10 kilometers, guess what? You'll only ever run 10 kilometers. But if you think to yourself, I can run 100 miles, maybe you won't. But I think most people that have that belief will end up running 100 miles. And even if you fall short, you might run 50 miles. You might run 70 miles. We're prisoners to our own self-limiting beliefs. I really concur with that. And the other thing I concur with is that the first mile is always the worst when you go on a run. That first mile sucks.
And that first mile is it's real on a run, but it's also sort of a metaphor for everything else. The first mile can apply to everything. It always sucks to get started. I mean, when I do push-ups, I think about it every single time I'm doing push-ups. I desire making progress, and I desire the ability to make another video and hopefully inspire people, but I don't actually want to get down. The only time it starts to become, I get into that flow is literally after I force myself onto the ground and do a set of push-ups. That first one always hurts. So I think it's relatable to everything. I mean, I've seen on your Instagram, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're into jujitsu, right?
Yeah, I am.
I love that. I've got a 5-year-old son. He does jujitsu. He started a few months ago. I want to get into jujitsu. I've got a lot going on, so it's tough to do it right now. But I'd imagine I would love to get your perspective. That's the exact same thing, right? I've been a big MMA fan for years and years and years, and everything I've ever learned and heard about from the jujitsu world and all those stud athletes is that, when you start jujitsu, you are so humbled because there is so much that you don't know. You're just dominated. And then with enough time and effort, suddenly you start picking things up. Would you agree? I mean, is that your experience?
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of people that you see come into the gym, start training jiu-jitsu, some people obviously only stick around for a couple of weeks. And you get a lot of people that will stick around for 6 months, a year, And it's almost like they've got the hardest part out of the way, but then they fall off it. I think like it's almost that paradox of the more you know, the less you know. The first part is incredibly hard, but then it's almost as though when you reach a certain level, you've got past the part that's actually really hard, which is starting. You've got to this point now where you've got up to a hill and you can see the mountains around you, and you think, oh my goodness, it's been so difficult to get here. It's going to be even more difficult to get there. But what you don't realize is you've already conquered the first mile. You've already conquered the first mountain. You're going to have to keep climbing and climbing, but the hardest part is out of the way. So I think that's it's definitely, I see it a lot in jiu-jitsu. You see it a lot with people in whatever activity they do, whether it's running, going to the gym. But yeah, the only way is through. The only way is to keep on going. You mentioned that first set of push-ups each day, feeling sore. How does the body feel after 9 years now of consistently doing push-ups? You mentioned you were getting some pain in your elbow when you were going for the world record attempt. On a day-to-day basis now, how sore, how beat up is your body physically? And if it is, what do you do to manage that? Do you do stretching? Do you do resistance bands? Hanging from a bar, shoulder mobility? Do you do any kind of prehab and rehab to keep the body in working order?
Unfortunately, not really. And that's where it gets back to, I would not consider myself a fitness guy. I'm more of just kind of a power through mindset type guy, which I'm not recommending. I don't think that's necessarily good. My body, for the most part, is in, I think, solid shape. I mean, I generally feel great. I am not often sore. I mean, if I have a big day of push-ups, I'll be sore. I've been messing around with doing a few different things like max push-up sets or trying to do little challenges here and there. And so those actually create some soreness. But I have learned over the years, and again, this is not advice or a recommendation. It's just from my experience. I have learned over the years that we're all sore. We all have little aches and pains. In fact, even when I'm not doing a lot, I can find something that hurts. So what I choose to do is just sort of move through it and keep going. And eventually it gets better. Again, that's not really, that's not medical advice, obviously. I have lately had a little bit of elbow issues with that same left elbow. And the way that I try to get through that is I try to be smart. I try to be thoughtful. I mean, if my whole pursuit to do 1 million push-ups gets derailed because I snap something in my elbow, I'm going to be pissed. That will be a total bummer. But at the same time, I know that I can't stop just because there's a little ache and pain. I mean, there's always going to be aches and pains in life. So I try to be thoughtful of what my form is. I try to take a day off or two here and there if that's what I think is needed. And I ultimately try to listen to my body. I mean, if I'm hurting a little bit, I'm not going to push it and do 1,000 push-ups. Maybe I'll do 400 in a day or whatever it may be. To try to be mindful of where I'm at.
What recommendations do you have to people who want to do more push-ups? I think push-ups used to be an exercise that was really popular when I was a young kid. I started doing push-ups when I was 10 years old, and I got to the point very quickly where I could do sets of 50. I was doing hundreds each day. There's no way I could do that now. I'm way stronger now, but there's no way I could do that now, because with push-ups, the only thing that helps you get better at push-ups, really, from my experience, is doing push-ups. So I'm kind of asking two questions at once here. Number one, do you agree with that the only way to get better at push-ups is to do more push-ups, or is there supplementary training that can help with that? And two, do you think there kind of has been a trend of push-ups falling out of favor, or do you not see it that way?
Yes, I agree with your sentiment around the only way to get better at doing push-ups is to do push-ups. I mean, I think that is that's a theme in pretty much everything. So I get asked that a lot. Hey, how do I do 50 push-ups straight? Or how do I get, do more and more? And the answer that I try to give is just do them more. I mean, I think another thing that I try to push that I hope it's received well and I hope it's understood is, this isn't about doing thousands of push-ups straight. This isn't about doing, having some otherworldly abilities or strength. I certainly don't have that. All I have gotten really good at is doing them over and over. So I typically will do sets of 15 push-ups. That's my sweet spot. I'll do a set of 15 push-ups. I'll break for a minute or 30 seconds or whatever. And then I'll do that again, and I'll repeat that for like an hour. And that's how I get these numbers up. So, I think a lot of people, if they want to do more push-ups, the answer is just do more. You don't have to do sets of 50. That's hard. That's hard for anybody. But do small sets and then repeat that over and over, and you'll find that you get better and stronger with enough time of doing that. So that's my recommendation there. As it relates to push-ups falling out of popularity, I'll call it, I don't know. I mean, yes, in many ways I tend to agree because, I think in today's day and age, crazy images are what sell. So you see so many people online, and I'm not ripping on them. You see so many people online that are just gigantic, that have the huge muscles, that are, they've got the look, and that attracts, a lot of interest. That attracts a lot of eyeballs for obvious reasons, because that's interesting. I mean, how does somebody get to look like that? And I think when you start really digging in, there's a lot underneath that. Well, they've got a crazy workout regimen. They are specific about what they're doing. Their diet might look a certain way, certain supplements or, steroids to get to look that way. And that isn't necessarily spoken about. So I think a lot of people look at that and think, okay, I need to get to the gym. I need to get bigger. When in reality, I don't know. What I'm trying to push is that you don't necessarily need that. I mean, I've thought before, is my whole thing like a battle against the modern gym? And I don't think it is. I've got no issue with modern gyms. I think they're actually a great thing. But, my message is like, just do this at home. If you want to get in shape and get, stronger, do push-ups on the floor at home. So I'm not really directly answering your question. I think that's because I don't have a good answer for it. But I don't know. I certainly have gotten a lot of messages from people over the last year in particular that have said, hey, I've started doing push-ups since finding your content. And that certainly pumps me up.
I think that's a really good point that you raised. I think there's probably a lot of truth in that just by doing push-ups, you're not going to gain this monstrous, gigantic physique, which is really popular at the moment. And like you said, there's a lot of things to go into that. And one of those is steroids. So as well as, of course, intense resistance training. So that could be a very good reason why push-ups have fallen out of favor. But what you said as well is it's not necessarily as sexy watching somebody just do simple sets of push-ups as it is watching somebody deadlift, 500 kilos or whatever it is.
Right.
But for me, I actually find it very gratifying watching your reels every day of you doing push-ups. Sometimes you do them by the sea, you do them at home, you do them in the garden. I find the simplicity of it very gratifying, and clearly lots of other people do as well, right? That's why you've been able to garner a big following. So yeah, hopefully, in my mind, you're the push-up, not just the push-up guy, the push-up renaissance guy. You're going to make push-ups great again.
I love it. I love it. That's an awesome message. Yeah, but you said it right. It's like, and I appreciate your compliments there. Thank you very much. What I am doing and what I'm trying to push is not sexy. I'm trying to tell people that the only way to accomplish what you want in life is to put in a lot of work for years and years and years. I mean, assuming I'm able to do my millionth push-up late December, which is my current plan, that will be almost to the day 10 years of working toward this goal. And that can be daunting. It's daunting for me to think about. I've thought about, I got to build my shoulders, for example. A lot of people shit talk on my shoulders, which is fine. But I thought, I need to start working out on my shoulders more. And even in my own head, I get to the point where I'm like, God, that's going to take a lot of work. And so I need to grab myself by the collar and realize the message is, look, that's how it goes. Everything takes a lot of time. And so that's to your point. That's not the sexiest message. People want to hear, well, what can I do right now that's going to make me look good by the summertime? And the reality is, sure, there are certain things, but like, that's just not how it works, So I hope it resonates with a lot of people because I think it really is like the formula to building a good life. And I don't really necessarily have the answers. I'm not an expert at this. I'm about to turn 35, so I'm still fairly young and inexperienced in a lot of ways. I have just found that at the very least with push-ups, I have made progress over the years by sticking with it, by maintaining the structure and the discipline and the desire to reach that goal. And I think that's the same with everything else.
Are there any people on social media that you take inspiration from? So for me, and it's very cliche, but a massive figure of inspiration for me is David Goggins, who's a big push-up guy as well. I find him incredibly motivating. I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but for me, not that I'm quite a disciplined person. I've always, like I said, especially with jiu-jitsu and competing, I have a very disciplined regime, and it's not difficult. I've got to be honest, it's not difficult for me to do that. I've just always naturally been a disciplined person. But whenever I need to get hyped up a bit, David Goggins is, one of the key figures for me in that regard. Are there any people like that you have that, on those days where you're a bit sore, you're not feeling it as much, that you look to for sources of inspiration and motivation?
Yeah, there are a bunch of them. I mean, David Goggins, of course, he's like the freaking leader of all of that stuff. So I'm also a huge fan of him. Two people in particular. There's one. His name, I believe, is Andy Glaze. I just found him recently in the last couple months. He's a big ultra marathon runner. A lot of those ultra marathon runners, I'm a huge fan of, because I think they have the same mindset, which is, look, if I'm going to go run a 100-mile race, it's not going to be pleasant, but the only way that I will get there is if I continue to push. And then eventually, with enough time and effort, I'll get there. So this guy named Andy Glaze, I think that's his name, for the last 4 years, he just hit 4 years, I think today or next week or something. For the last 4 years, every single week, he has run 100 miles in a week. So I don't know what that comes out to in kilometers, but that's huge. I mean, that's like, God, I wish I knew the conversion. Sorry, I don't.
Is it 160 kilometers?
I think it is. Yes, yeah. I think that is the conversion. So call it 160 kilometers every week for 4 years. I mean, that's crazy. That is so much running. I've never come close to running that amount in 1 week, let alone every week for 4 years. And he posts all the time that, like, one thing he says often is smile or you're doing it wrong. And I love that, because that's the same thing with choosing to have a positive perspective. I'm sure there are days he's in pain. He's talking about some mental battles that he's facing. And the reality is, the only way to make that happen is to keep going. I mean, there's another woman named Courtney Dauwalter. Her last name, Dauwalter, I think it is, Courtney Dauwalter. She won a few years ago. I believe the race is called Moab 240. It's here in the U.S. in Utah, where it's a 240-mile race, and she won. She beat everybody, men, women. She beat everybody by like almost a full day. And she's this little positive, delightful-looking woman who is unassuming, but she's an absolute animal in her mind. And so I think about those types of people often. There's another woman that I follow who's run every day for like 21 years. I mean, that stuff is just crazy. And it's what all of these people preach or talk about is the fact that you just do it. You just choose to do it every single day. You don't always feel good, but you just do it. It doesn't matter who you are, you just do it. Final person I'll mention is a guy named Jocko Willink. He's another former Navy SEAL. He's gotten hugely popular over the last few years. And he talks all about that exactly. That, like, it doesn't feel good to wake up early and go work out, but you just do it. He also, last thing I'll say is, he's got this it's a video, it's called Good. You can Google it. Good by Jocko Willink. You may have seen this before, but for any listeners, and he talks about how when things are going bad in life, good. Think to yourself, good. This is an opportunity for me to get stronger, for me to get sharper, for me to get better. No matter what I'm battling with, yes, it might suck, but good. It's an opportunity for me to change my situation and get better in life. So those are the type of people that I love following, because they help me go. They help reiterate this message to myself that anyone can do anything in life. You just got to keep going.
I think you and I share very similar taste in that regard, because Courtney Dauwalter, I'm very familiar with. She is a savage. Like you said, you would not expect, someone of her figure, like you said, just looks so unassuming, a good looking woman, doesn't look like somebody that's going to push themselves through something that's so torturous. Yes. And yet she beat everybody in this 240-mile race, men, women. You have people like Cameron Haynes that was running in that race. I remember David Goggins, I think, has done it before, and he didn't win. So it just goes to show, don't judge a book by its cover. And I think it's important as well to have a variety of inspirational figures in terms of looks and the way they deliver their message, because the way she delivers inspiration and the way another one of those gentlemen you mentioned delivers his message, it's much more lighthearted. It's through a smile, and some people need that. Some people need the David Goggins, Jocko Willink, somebody very intensely masculine, looking straight in the camera and telling them, "This just happened to you, good," or "Stay fucking hard."
Yeah.
But you need, some people, and I think we all do at times, need a smile. We need to see a smile and be able to smile through pain. I think they're both equally as important. So I think that's a good tip for people looking for inspiration, that you should probably have a good variety of inspirational figures and not just try and apply one person's philosophy and one person's way of motivating themselves to every single situation you're faced with. You've got to use the tool for the job, right?
That's right. That's right. And, I don't think I do. I know I do not do a good job at this. My account in particular is less smiley than I am in real life. I mean, I've had people come up to me and be like, "Dude, this is nothing like who you are actually." Because, outside of Instagram, I'm a very jolly, happy dude. But within Instagram and the stuff that I post, that's me in my flow state. I mean, that's when I am dialed in. So that's the way that I document this stuff. When I am feeling that, like, those videos are all sincere, everything that I post. So if I'm ever intense, that's because I am an intense dude. At the same time, you bring up a great point, which is there is that other side too. In order to accomplish things, it's not about just, banging your head against a wall and fighting through the pain. I mean, there's certainly that aspect to it, but like, the reality is we all have one life. Like, eventually this is going to be over, and there are beliefs about what happens next, but everybody thinks something different. So, like, yes, life is going to be tough. We do need to fight through it a lot of times, but at the same time, we can have a sense of humor. Things can be shitty, and like, that can be funny, because life it's just the way it is. So I'm kind of rambling on that, but you brought up a great point, which is it's important to see all sides of the kind of a powerful mindset, because there's no right way to do it. It depends on who you are, what you're dealing with, what you want in life, etc.
So your aim is to hit your 1 millionth push-up by the 29th of December this year. What's next after that? Have you thought of something you want to do after that? Is it going to be just very much the same thing? Stick with the regimen. It doesn't matter now that you've hit the millionth push-up. We're going to continue doing push-ups, or have you got something else in mind?
That's a great question. I get asked that lately quite a bit, and I don't have an answer yet. I don't know. What I typically respond to people is, I still have 140,000 push-ups to go to actually get there. That's a lot of push-ups. Even if I've done this for years and years, that's still a lot to do. So I'm hopeful that between now and December 29th, I'm able to do those 140,000. I've got a plan in place. I mean, if the next, however long that is, 10 months or whatever, if the next 10 months or anything like the last 9 years, I will make that happen. I mean, I'm fully planning to, but I'm also just, I'm conscious of that. So I'm doing what I can to keep on the path and make sure that does happen. In the meantime, I've got these new things called push days that I started in January. It's the last day of every month. This month we're doing March 30th, so we don't interfere with Easter on the 31st. But the plan is to have that be the last day of every month, where we bring people from around the world together to try to reach a certain goal. So we've been focusing on push-ups. This month our plan is the goal is to do 350,000 push-ups globally on March 30th. So I'm going to keep going with those things. I think those can branch out into all different areas. I think soon I'll do a running one of those, a version of that. There could be other different types of workouts. There could be other things outside of fitness that we could try to bring the world together. We'll know, my hope is that everybody eventually knows that the last day of every month is a push day, where we all push ourselves. We come together as a global team. We accomplish cool things. So that's taken up a lot of my mind, and I plan to have that go well beyond, when I reach my millionth push-up goal. But as it relates to me specifically, I don't really know. I imagine I'll keep doing push-ups. I don't know that I'll do them as intense as I do now, but it's become who I am. I mean, I while it always sucks to get down and do it, I feel good about myself. Again, there's that positive momentum I've built up. So it gives me something to do. And, I think a lot these days, this is the final thing I'll say. I think a lot these days about my kids and what the legacy is that I'll leave. And, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not, crazy good looking. I'm not skilled or talented, but at the very least, if whenever I'm gone, whenever that will be, I hope my kids live a lot longer. They'll be able to look back and say, wow, my dad accomplished this. So that drives me quite a bit. So if that means continuing to do push-ups, cool. Maybe I'll do 2 million. I don't know. Time will tell.
As a final question then, off the back of what you've just said, what to you is the meaning of life? You talked about legacy, you talked about people have different beliefs concerning what happens after this life. What is the meaning of life to you? You have this massive lease for life. We've talked about optimism, positivity, inspiration to be able to do whatever you want to do in life. What ultimately is the meaning of it all?
It's a great question. I think about this all the time. I mean, I'm fascinated with space and what's out there and why the hell we're here. And I grew up religious. I would call myself like sort of religious these days. I have a belief in God personally. I also have a lot of questions. I mean, I don't really know what is out there and why we are here. I think there's a reason why we're here. I don't know exactly what it is. So as it relates to the meaning of life, I think, and I'm going to kind of fumble this answer because I'm not certain. I think, there's two things. I'll say what I think the meaning of life is broadly, and then I'll comment on myself. I think broadly the meaning of life is to find what fulfills you and to find what your real purpose is, who you are, and then live that out to its fullest. So I think a lot of people don't, and it's unfortunate. I think a lot of people don't do that for a lot of reasons, whether it's where they were born, the guidance they were given, the belief in themselves, again, a lot of it, bringing it back, a lot of it comes to where they're born, and I'm so lucky to have been born where I am to the parents that I have been. So I've been gifted that. But I think if you're able to follow whatever makes you feel fulfilled in life, that is, I think, one big meaning of life. And then as it relates more specifically to me, it comes down to the legacy that I'm leaving behind. I mean, we are so lucky living in 2024 these days with I know technology can be negative in a lot of ways, but there's so much positive that has come from it. We can leave legacies that realistically can and will live on forever. I mean, nobody knows what 1,000 years from now will look like. So I don't know, to me, and whether this is right or wrong, I don't know. And I don't know that I'll ever know. To me, I'm leaving as much as I can on the internet with hopes of inspiring people now, but also for hundreds of years to come. Most importantly, my own family. I wish like hell I knew more about my grandpa, who died 30 years ago, or his parents, or his great-great-grandparents. I wish I could see that. So I think, for me and maybe others out there, we're so lucky with the ability to document that. And it's important to me to do so. Last thing I'll say, if I think about this often, if I, God forbid, were to die today, I hope that doesn't happen. If I were, I would feel content knowing that I've left a lot of who I am and a lot of the messages I would want to pass along. I've left it on the internet. And some will agree and some will disagree. Not everybody needs to do that, of course, but that's important to me. And so I at least feel content knowing that.
Where can people go to keep up to date with the journey of you getting to 1 million push-ups, to find community, to get involved in the push days? Where can they go for all of this?
The best place right now is on Instagram, where I'm the most active. My username there is @1_million pushups. I think you can probably just search Kevin Cullum or the push-up guy. I imagine that'll pop up too. Same username on TikTok as well. I haven't been as active there recently. I should get back up and rolling. Again, @1_million pushups. And then my website is acdanything.com. So ACD, the letters, anything.com. You can sign up for the March 30th push day, where we're trying to get a team globally to do 350,000 push-ups together. And those are really the places to hit me up. I'm always down to talk with people and get inspired by what you're doing. So anybody, feel free to reach out.
Kevin, I really appreciate you. This was a fantastic conversation. I almost kind of feel like you're my American counterpart. We share so many similar perspectives on positivity, inspiration, discipline. It was a real pleasure to speak with you today. I feel very confident that you're going to hit that 1 million push-up goal by the end of the year, and I look forward to keeping up to date with it and watching you do your push-ups every day.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate everything you're saying. The compliments are very nice. So thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. This has been awesome. I'm glad to connect.
My pleasure, Kevin.